compulsive behavior aimed at experiencing more stuff is not freedom. That's what people like. That's the thing that when people say, I want to do as much as I want, whenever I want, all that shit, it's just compulsive behavior aimed at experiencing more stuff. That is not freedom. Again, it's kind of the opposite.
Interesting. So we subconsciously perceive freedom as the ability to engage in our compulsions without negative consequences, sounds like. If we want to be able to do what we want, when we want, where we want, how we want, regardless of why we want to do this, that sounds like unmitigated impulsive behavior that we want the freedom of consequence from. And that's definitely not true freedom. Although I am very curious to know if this is all fake freedom and optionality is essentially a trap. What is real freedom? How does he explain that?
I'm glad that you asked, because this shit is, I've been quoting it. Yeah, I hit it. This shit I've been. So what's funny is actually that I watched a video of him talk. I think it was a presentation that he gave to Google. And in that presentation, in the middle of it, he said in just one short sentence, the best way I've heard anyone explain real freedom. It's super simple and ridiculous and short. He doesn't even mention it in his book, as far as I remember. And he says that, well, actually, I'm going to keep that at the end, so I tease a little bit, so build up tension here, because I want to build up more context to what he's explains is the real freedom. So he said the only true form.
You to the polar bears.
This is the cliffhanger effect, right? I gotta keep you hooked. You know, you gotta keep make this exciting or what? So the only true form of freedom, the only ethical form of freedom is through self-limitation. Okay? Choosing what you will give up in your life. And actually, I'm just gonna drop it now. So the overall title that I want you to hang on everything that I say from this point on is that real freedom is choosing your limitations.
Real freedom is choosing your limitations. Interesting. I actually heard Dr. K talk about this concept in a similar way, localized an application to the domain of success. Actually, he was talking about why people procrastinate, and he gave a really good analogy. He said when people want to do something or they want to achieve something, they think of what they want to gain, not what they're willing to lose. And because people don't factor in what they're willing to lose, a lot of the commitments that they make don't hold. And so, for example, that's why being outcome oriented in what you want is a terrible way to actually go about getting the things that you think are important, because you're not actually preparing your brain for what it's going to cost you, nor have you accepted it. That personally is what I think also allowed me, and feel free to hop in here if you also agree. The goals that I set out to do, whether it's 75 hard, overcoming my medical problems and graduating from school at the top of my class, being able to end up in a job that I really love and, pursue projects that I'm really proud of. Every single time I made a decision in any of these arenas, the first thing I started asking myself was, what am I going to have to give up? How long am I going to have to give it up for? And am I okay with that? And it's not a split-second decision either, Chris. You're not going to be able to just sit at your desk, have a 10-minute little heart-to-heart with yourself, light a candle, do a face mask, and come out of that experience being like, I know exactly what I want. It doesn't work that way. You ruminate on it. Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure that the thing above me in the corner of my room is not a spider. It's not a spider. Okay.
That's the most emotionalized reaction I've seen from you. Now, I want to add something to what you just said, because everything that you just said, it can be very nicely summed up in that freedom is not free.
Freedom is not free. And furthermore, freedom is our agency over what limitations we will accept in our life, or what trade-offs we're willing to accept in our life.
Yeah.
I agree. In economics, we say this as well. There's no such thing as a free lunch. There are trade-offs in everything you do. I actually, at first, when you were talking about Mark Manson's definition, he talked about freedom from the perspective of it being an acknowledgement of limitations. I thought it was going to contradict Housel's definition, but now I see that there's a little bit more of a nuanced take here. I think from what you've told me and what I read from multiple authors is that freedom actually lies on a continuum, and either extreme is bad. Having no agency and no choice is terrible. And we are equally as trapped when we have complete agency, no direction, no saliency, and no acknowledgement of what we're able to give up. I think Housel talks about this from the idea of, I'm trying to find the chapter. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. So he talks about his experience being a valet in Los Angeles and meeting people who were rich, spend money on cars, boats, yachts, you name it. That being said, he has such a profoundly simple statement in here, and I think it's so important, but he said, wealth is what you haven't spent yet. And so when you're looking at people who are rich and have all this optionality to get the boat, the car, the clothes, the house, etc., you are actually seeing how much worse off they are. You're seeing a representation of the amount of money they lost, not what they gained. Because they traded in actual wealth, which is what you haven't spent yet, for things. And most material things depreciate extremely quickly immediately after purchase, or do not retain their value for a longer duration of time. I mean, occasionally I'll run into the girl that wants to justify to me why getting a snakeskin Birkin is a really good investment.
Okay, hold on. I just want to shoot in a real quick thing, because when you're talking about wealth, because wealth is not always only correlated to money. Think about time. Like Warren Buffett would pay, like he'd spend all of his money if he was be able to go back and get all the time that we have. As he'd give up every single piece of those. I don't know how many billions he got. Right. We're time billionaires. We're billionaire where it matters more, like almost most, but certainly a shit ton more than money. Time billionaires, like any type of old billionaire with money would like buy that in a split second. Like they wouldn't even have to think about it. Of course, are you kidding me? Getting me more time? Hell yeah. And youth back? Come on. It's a no-brainer. So
of course.
Yeah, but the problem is we fill it up with so much shit. And it's because that's why I love, you're talking about the sacrifices to make and living with less. I think, okay, hold on. I'm trying to remember the last couple of points made.
It's going back to the point of trade-offs, even with financial wealth, which a lot of people correlate strongly to freedom and optionality. The true freedom is actually in not spending the money, even when you can, because wealth is the money that has not been spent yet. And we fundamentally are deluded into believing the opposite. And so that kind of fits in nicely with the definition that you established from Mark Manson, who's talking about freedom is the limitations you choose to accept, and freedom is not free.